Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals. And we can't do that on our own. So we invite people on to help us who are experts in the field and who are coming up with fun, interesting, and in this case, frugal ways for us to do that. So I'm really happy that Sarah St. John has agreed to join us today because Sarah is the FrugalPreneur and the authorpreneur, and she's the person who can help you start your entrepreneurial journey on a little bit of a budget, right? You don't have to save $5 million so that you can live off 4% of the proceeds for the rest of your life, right? Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Sarah, have you always been like an entrepreneur? Have you ever always been this frugalpreneur, or did you ever have like a 9 to 5 kind of life?
So I feel like I was born an entrepreneur, but I didn't realize it until like my 20s. I had several, well, actually, it was 2008. I had several jobs that year.
Thanks. That's
I had
always
had
a clue.
I had had 6 different jobs throughout the course of the year. And I realized that I wanted to work for myself. So I started a photography business because I like taking photos at the time. But I realized that I like taking photos of animals, architecture, landscapes. But I was doing like weddings and portraits, which is where the money is, but I didn't really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Plus the expense to maintain equipment and all of that. So I wanted to go to an online business model, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I tried a bunch of different things like drop shipping, affiliate marketing, blogging, all kinds of stuff. But it was in that process that I discovered all these like free or really affordable tools, resources, software that you can run a business on a budget. Like, I mean, the most I've ever spent per month on a business is like $100. And so, yeah, there's a lot of free or really affordable ways to run a business on a budget as far as online business goes. And so then I got the idea to write my first book, FrugalPreneur, kind of going over the different types of online business models and how to run them on a budget. But it was while I was writing that book that I then got the idea to start a podcast, also called FrugalPreneur, to coincide with the book. It was just going to be like another marketing avenue. I was only going to have like 10 episodes, but I was getting more leverage and traction with the podcast than the book. So I've kept that up. I've been doing it for I guess it's almost 3 years now. About close to 140 episodes, I think, somewhere around there. And I've loved the connections I've been making and the networking, and it's almost like free education as well. I always learn from my guests and whatnot. So yeah, so that's mainly what I do now. Like I love it so much that I created a podcast production agency, and then I wrote a book about podcasting and all this stuff. But yeah, it took over a decade of trying, I don't know, a million different things before I found that thing.
Yeah. Well, the first clue, right? Entrepreneurs are basically unemployable. So once you do 6 jobs in a year, you're like, yeah, okay, I must be an entrepreneur.
Right, exactly. Well, and then I was thinking back to my childhood, and I remember like gathering up stuff I would get for free, like candy or pencils or whatever, and then sell them to my friends. So I think I've kind of always had kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, but I went along with the, go to college and get a 9 to 5 and all that. And it was after doing that for a few years that I was like, I don't know about this.
Well, because they don't tell you about entrepreneurship. That was never on the
Right.
list. You want to be a fireman or a ballerina or right? You don't get like entrepreneur doesn't make that list. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, right? It's a shame. And I hope it's changing. But
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
now, sorry, were you gonna say something just
Oh,
then?
I was just going to say, I think it is changing a little bit. I think we're seeing at least more trade schools, like where you go to school for a specific thing versus learning everything, or people now know that it's okay to not go to college, at least right away, and maybe start a business or something. So I think it's becoming more common, I guess, but not quite where, I don't know, I'd like
Where
it to
we'd
be, I
like to
guess.
see it, right? Well, and also, you know that something's happening because the colleges are getting on board. They're starting to
Mhm.
offer, degrees in entrepreneurship, which is like, cheating. But it's okay. It's better than getting a degree in accounting and, trying to go from work from there to become an entrepreneur.
Right.
But although at least with accounting, you need that. But anyway, so fast forward to today, you've got your book, you've got your podcast, how do you find ways? How do you discover new ways? First, how did you ever like stumble upon free stuff? Because it seems like that everybody tells you, oh no, you've got to have all these, people and things and stuff. And in order to have any of those things, so in order to write a book, in order to have a podcast.
Hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, as far as the books go, I have three now. And I just self-publish through Amazon. It's free to do. So the nice thing about it is it's print on demand. So you don't have to have like a warehouse full of books that never sell. It's like when someone buys it, then Amazon prints it and ships it, and you don't have to worry about it. Um, and so yeah, no really cost there. I mean, I I think I got someone to do the cover on like Fiverr or something, really affordably. And then I did have an editor, but I found like the most affordable one that was actually good. So I think the total I actually spent per book between like the cover art, the editing and all that was maybe 150 to 200 a book.
Wow.
Um, so not that expensive. And then as far as podcasting, I mean, the microphone I use, it's ATR 2100, is like $60. And then it's a USB, plugs right into your computer. Uh, and then like the software we're using right now is Zoom, which is free. So I recommend that, if you're starting out, or um, there's other software programs as well that are maybe like $20 a month, or um, and then of course podcast hosting, you have to have a place to host the files, and that can be anywhere from free to $20 a month or so. So it's still, relatively inexpensive when you compare it to like a brick and mortar or a retail type of business. The overhead is hardly anything compared to that. So that's why I recommend online businesses, is just because there's so many different things you can do, and no matter what you do, it's not unreasonable that it would be around $100 a month. Now, if you're having to hire people like virtual assistants or something, that's an additional. But as far as like the software and things like that to run a business, that's about what I'm finding.
Yeah. So what's your actual what's your actual quote unquote job now? Are you making enough money from your like solopreneur endeavors to, you know,
So right now I do have a day job. Accounting, actually, like you were just talking about.
I didn't mean to
Um,
diss accounting. It's actually a
no,
great
it's
job.
um, but just to pay the bills and things like that. But I think I'm thinking maybe in a year or so, I'm hoping that I can venture out on, just doing entrepreneurial endeavors. Um, yeah. Yeah, I definitely don't recommend like just up and quitting your job if your, let's say, side hustle or your business isn't at least maybe matching what you were making in your day job. But so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a lot of pressure.
Hmm.
If you have to succeed and you have to, and I think it could potentially put you in kind of a scarcity sort of mindset where you're going to be like, oh my God, I've got to do this. I've got to, some people it's good for them, right? It makes them hustle, but some people are just like, okay, I'm having a nervous breakdown now.
Yeah, I mean, because some people say, well, until you know, take that leap of faith or quit and then go all in on your business, like that's kind of the fire under your butt, basically. And I think that could be true for some people, but I've always been more, what's the word?
Smart. Realistic.
I guess cautious or conservative or something, like don't I don't know. I don't I like to play my cards. I don't know. You get what I'm saying though.
I get it. I feel what you're saying. And it's, but what kinds of things, like when you're looking at, okay, I'm going to, a year from now, I'm going to have my self in a situation where I can walk away from my accounting job. What will you be doing, do you think?
Well, my podcast production agency is I monetize the podcast directly in small ways, but as far as being able to sustain and live off of something, it would be the podcast production agency, which I recently launched. So I think that's going to be the main income generator, and then just kind of supplemental type of income streams, affiliate marketing, things like that, on top of that.
Cool. I tried to do a little bit of affiliate marketing with my podcast links, like people would talk about books and things like that, but Amazon shut it off because not enough people were clicking.
Oh, I didn't even know they did that.
Yeah, I was like, what do you mean? Not enough people have bought stuff from your links. I'm like, oh boy, you guys are tough.
Oh, wow. Huh. I didn't even know. Maybe that's a new thing that they're doing. Like if you sign up to be an affiliate after a certain
date or something. Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
I didn't think it was, anyway, that's my sad story. But what now, aside from like, an obvious one like Amazon, what kinds of places can you get to give you affiliate links that could potentially give you some revenue?
Yeah. So as far as affiliate marketing, like the way I use it is there's, all these tools and resources and software that I recommend. Some of them, are totally free or have free plans available. But if they have an affiliate program, I join it and then, use that link. And so obviously if someone gets on the free plan, I'm not probably going to make anything, but, say they upgrade later, or maybe that particular thing isn't free. And some affiliate programs just pay once, depending on what it is, and others it's recurring, like a monthly affiliate commission. But so far, I've made a little bit with Amazon, like not much, because their commission rates are so low.
Yeah, very low. Yeah.
And then a few here and there, but for the most part, and I like that business model or the concept or idea of it. And some people make 7 figures, 8 figures a year doing predominantly that. But yeah, I don't know. I probably make like in the hundreds per year.
Yeah, but the very first person I interviewed was Tyler Sheff, and he's the cash flow guy. It's mostly talking about real estate, rental real estate and different types of real estate models. But he said to me, you just figure out how to make $100 a month, and you just keep doing it over and over again until you get the income that you want. I said, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm always like searching for, I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it's a bad habit or what you would call it, but I'm always looking for the best software for this or that or the other thing. The best as far as like how it operates and runs, but also for the price. And so I get really excited when I discover a new one that is better than whatever this other thing was. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna start promoting this one now.
No, that's great though. I mean, I'd rather have learned from someone else's experience with that, because I don't have the patience to, to keep trying new stuff and everything. I'm just like, just tell me what to use. And, so I'm looking to you for advice on that. I noticed when you did your, podcast guide, that you didn't mention Anchor as a free resource for podcast hosting.
Mhm.
Do you have an opinion about them?
Are you talking about on the Podcastpreneur, that book?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to think. First of all, I assume they existed when I wrote that, because that was written, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago.
They may not have then. They may not. I think they're
Mhm.
newish. I'm not sure.
But yeah, I do. I mean, I'm not as opinionated about it as some people, but basing it off of kind of what I've heard and whatnot, and maybe they've improved. The issue is, well, I mean, they say if something's free, then you're the product. I mean, it depends, I guess, if they have if someone has a free plan and then they have paid plans, I don't think that's the case. But
Yeah.
if it's just free, like totally, then I don't know. But so I think the big issue is that they would, and whether they still do this or not, I don't know. They would distribute your podcast like to Apple Podcasts, but through their, like, you wouldn't have access to go in on Apple Connect or whatever and see your statistics or any of that. It was almost like they owned the feed, because yeah, whereas every other host, yeah, they distribute it everywhere, but it's to where you still have control over it and can see your analytics and things like that. So I think that was kind of the big plus. Apparently, and I don't know if you have to agree to this, but like they can insert ads, but maybe that's only if you say, because you can earn like a penny or something
Yeah, no,
if they
exactly.
play an ad. And then the ads could be so random, like not even relevant to your audience. So I think those are some of the reasons people aren't a big fan of it.
Yeah, because I was using it. I mean, I am using it still,
Oh,
in part potentially out of ignorance, but I'm pretty sure that all the statistics that I get are just from Spotify.
okay.
So that maybe you're right. You know what I mean? That your
Mm-hmm.
analytics are not that great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one I use that I've I mean, I have no complaints whatsoever is Captivate. It starts at $19 a month. That's the plan I'm on. It's one of the few things I actually pay for. And I try to use free software where I can, but I love Captivate because they just keep rolling out new features, and they offer all kinds of stuff that I don't know of any other host that offers it. That's one of the few things I pay for. And then Descript is one of the other only things I pay for, and it's like $15 a month, and that's what I use to like edit. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's basically you can upload audio or video and it transcribes it, and then you can edit the audio or video by editing the transcript. So you can
Oh, really?
remove, yeah, you can remove ums and uhs and all that within like a click of a button.
And that takes it out of the actual audio file as well?
Uh-huh.
Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah. So and it has all kinds of other features now. But yeah, I love that one too.
What's that one called?
Descript,
Descript. Oh, I'll have to check that out
DESCR.
too. So I have one that just does, it's an AI that just goes through and transcribes the podcast. But if I change something in there, it doesn't change anything back in the,
Mm-hmm.
in the audio script. Interesting. Oh, so how would I get started if I didn't already have a podcast, which I clearly do because you're on it? How would I get started? How would a listener who's like, I really want to start this podcast. I'm a big fan of this show and I want to make a fan, thing or whatever, I want to use it to promote my business. What's the first thing that you would recommend somebody do?
Yeah. So the first thing I would recommend is a microphone. Now you could do just like your earbuds or, and record into that. But I personally, since some mics are so affordable, like the one I have, which I don't think this one exists anymore, but there's a Samsung Q2U, which is like the same thing.
That's what this is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like what, $60, $80, something
Yeah.
like that.
Not much.
So I definitely recommend, like, you could start a podcast for under $100 by just getting the mic, and then it plugs into your computer. And then the only other thing you have to have would be hosting, which again, you could do for free through Anchor. I think Spreaker has a free plan. That's what I started on. And there might be another one or two. But again, like the most you'd probably pay is like $20 a month for hosting. Because you need a place to host the files, and it distributes it to all the platforms like Spotify, Apple, Google, all of them. And so really those are the only things you really have to get started. And then of course, as far as the show itself goes, definitely niche down as much as you can, because very few people can do a podcast about everything, like Joe Rogan, for example. So yeah, I definitely recommend niching down. Like, for example, mine is a business podcast, which is already niched down, but then it's niched down even further by being about frugal business and entrepreneurship. And then as far as the name, naming the podcast, now technically the name of my show, it's not even a real word, which some people would say, well, that's not
because someone search for that. They never heard of it.
Yeah, they probably won't, but I mean, but still it's cute or clever enough to where people automatically know what it is. And I do have a tagline, which rarely people do, but when you have kind of a title like that, I recommend it. And it's building a business on a bootstrap budget. So if someone's searching for business or bootstrap or budget or entrepreneur, it may pop up. What I don't recommend is like for me, for example, to be called the Sarah St. John Show, because no one knows who the heck that I am unless they listen to the podcast. I mean, unless you're like Oprah or something, I feel like it doesn't make sense to name the show after you. Now you could say whatever the show name is with so-and-so, like I say with Sarah St. John. But yeah, so those are some kind of things to keep an eye out on or think about when starting a podcast.
Yeah. And your cover art's really good because it's got, and you can see right away what it is. You've got the little piggy bank and, you're like, okay, this is obviously somebody trying to save money. Okay. You're right. It's very visual, very obvious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another thing as far as cover art, like don't have too much going on. But I like cover art where it's like one or two colors. I mean, like a solid background and then with some kind of animated, like the piggy bank, for example, or even if you were to have your face on it, maybe an animated version, unless you're well known. I don't know. These are just me thinking kind of out loud right now.
Well,
more
but
information.
People are scrolling, right? They're looking, they're scrolling. Why are they going to stop at yours, right? There has to be something that's going to connect with them. That's going to, that they're going to at least have some idea. Because I see some covers and I'm like, there's just absolutely no way that I would know what the heck this, and why would you take the time to research it when there are like 1 million, 1.9 million other podcasts that you could look at, right? Just going to go to one that connects with me. But it is quite a crapshoot. If people are ever going to find you out there, that's how I feel. But maybe that's a scarcity mindset. Maybe I should say, it's obvious. But I don't know. Actually, my picture used to be, was the same as the cover of my book, which is a house on top of like gold coins.
Oh.
But then I said, well, then you're going to think it's only about real estate investing, and it's not. So I'm going to launch a different one and use that cover.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I like that idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
house
know.
on
I
them.
guess I should go back to the drawing board because it's just me like next to a statue of like a frog. That probably would not tell you a darn thing about anything, but yeah, I'll have to think about that.
It tells people that you like frogs, maybe. I don't know.
I like to travel, and when I do, I hug frog statues. Okay, great. Well, I used to, like I said, I changed it because someone else that I talked to said that he did a bunch of research, and the ones that had a person's face were more easily, those are the ones actually probably the ones that he was drawn to. Now that I think about what he actually said, he said those are the ones that he was drawn to, where, where someone was there, like kind of looking at you or whatever, and then he would want it. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go because I've seen some that are so perfect that when you look at it, you're just like, okay, I know exactly. Well, like yours, it's just like that. You look at it, I know exactly what I'm gonna get. I know exactly what this is about, right? I know if this is for me or not. And that's what you need, right? When there's a lot of competition or a lot of other options, I should say.
Yeah, I've seen kind of a trend lately, and I've thought about changing my cover art to be kind of similar, where it still has the piggy bank, but like maybe smaller, and then like a cartoon of me. I've seen that's kind of a trend where it's the person on the cover, maybe with something else, but they're cartoonized. Is that a word? Cartoonized? I
I
don't know.
think so. I know what you mean anyway.
Yeah. So
But now, so why would somebody, if they didn't already have one and they didn't know the answer to this, why would they want to start a podcast? What will a podcast do for you?
well, I think especially if it's used for business purposes, it definitely can help promote your business or get more exposure, because people will find, because basically Apple and now Google, they're search engines, and now like you could search in Google, and Google Podcasts you might get a result with a Google Podcast. So more visibility and exposure. As far as like having guests on your show, like the networking their potential future clients, or if you're a guest on other shows, which I recommend doing that, even if you don't want to start your own podcast, then you're getting access to their audience. People are learning about you that maybe wouldn't otherwise, and yeah, I think it's, well, it sounds kind of cheesy to say it's the future. I mean, I don't know if that's the right expression for it, because it's actually existed since I think 2004. But between 2004 and 2019, so 15 years, there were about 800,000 podcasts by 2019. And then in 2020, and some of this could be related to the pandemic and people being at home and starting a podcast just for the heck of it, but it doubled in that 1 year. And then since then, I think has yet another million, and of course they're not all active and whatever, but still, uh, I mean, and everybody, I think at this point knows what a podcast is. And like I feel like every TV show I watch now, someone is mentioning something about a podcast, or someone on the show has a podcast. And I always just get really excited every time. Like I recently watched that new Ghostbusters movie.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you saw it,
I
but
haven't, no.
oh, okay. Well, there's a kid in it, and he goes, like, his nickname, or what is referred to as podcast, because he has a podcast. And so I just love that whole storyline. And then there's like, have you seen the show? What was it? Only Murders in the Building. It's on Hulu, I think.
No.
And that's like them doing a whole podcast around, I guess someone gets murdered in the building, so they decide to start their own true crime podcast, like figuring out who did it. And anyway, so I think just the familiarity, I think at a certain point for businesses anyway, it's almost going to be expected to have a podcast.
Yeah, like a blog used to be.
Right. Yeah, it's like the new blog, basically.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about podcasts versus a blog or even versus a YouTube video is that people can multitask. So they could be driving, doing the dishes, whatever. And because it doesn't involve their eyes like a book, a blog, or a YouTube video would. And because of that, then they're more likely to spend an hour or whatever the length is of the podcast than, if you're reading something or watching something, you might only have 5 or 10 minutes
Right.
before you have to now go do this other thing. But yeah, so I think podcasts are just so versatile, and you can multitask while doing them. And so I think that's part of the reason why they're so popular.
Yeah. That's when I listen to stuff like that. Mostly is in the car.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, during my commute, I do that. And then, since I do have a day job right now, when I'm at
she
when
says
I'm
under
at
her breath.
I know. I listen to podcasts at work, but like there's usually always interruptions. And so I get kind of irritated. I'm like, oh, how am I going to finish this podcast? So then when I'm driving, it's like, okay, I can
Stop
finally
asking me these work questions. I have a podcast to listen to.
exactly.
That's fun. And then when you're driving, as long as you're alone, because otherwise someone will also be interrupting you every 5 minutes.
True. Yeah. So yeah, that's like the only thing I like about driving or commuting is the ability to listen to podcasts uninterrupted.
Yeah, I'm going to get a job a little further from home. So that's cool. So how today, how do you sort of, aside from, well, let's not say aside because maybe not everybody knows about this. Tell us about the ways that you are helping people to, find this inner person who's trying to get out, this entrepreneur who's trying to escape from their 9-to-5-ness.
9-to-5-ness. I haven't heard that one before.
We're making up a lot of words here, but it's good, I think. These are going to catch on.
So I mean, I guess there's kind of like two types of people. There's people that they want a side hustle as an extra form of income, for vacation or just to spend or whatever, but they want to keep their day job because maybe they enjoy it or it pays well or the benefits or whatever. So that would be more of a side hustle. Or then there might be someone who it kind of starts as a side hustle, but the intention is to get it to full-time status. And I think like if someone maybe isn't sure where they want to start or what they want to do, I think if you think about the things that either or someone has told you that you're good at, that you actually enjoy, or if there's a hobby that you have, like is there a way you could monetize it? Like either by teaching someone else how to do this thing, or by, like with me, I liked podcasting. So I was like, oh, maybe I should start a podcast production agency, so if there's a hobby, I mean, it could be anything. Like maybe you like to paint. Well, you could teach other people how to paint and make money off courses or coaching or whatever. So, I mean, there's so many different ways and options for making money online. But if it's something like for me, when I first started, I was trying this, that, and the other thing. Like anytime I heard of something, like I heard the word drop shipping, I'm like, oh, let me try that. And I didn't end up liking it. So I stopped doing it. But I think if you're starting something just because you're maybe kind of curious, or I mean, you could do that, but I recommend, finding something that you really love or enjoy either already, or you hear about something and you're like, oh yeah, versus trying 20 million different things. Because I feel like I wasted a lot of time doing that. But I guess the good thing is I got a book out of it because I talked about the different things.
Yeah.
And which then I started a podcast because of the book, and now the agency because of the podcast. So I kind of see now, like looking back, how it all kind of fell together.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the thing with entrepreneurs is we all tend to have shiny object syndrome. And that was definitely my situation. But I think when you finally find that thing, it's not, you might still get ideas, of course, like, oh, that would be a good business idea. But you might not be as inclined to actually like try it if you're already satisfied with what you're doing.
Yeah, you want to find, like you say, something you're passionate about that really fuels you. And the
Mhm.
self-education thing is a fantastic. I mean, that's the trend, right? That's the future. So if there's something you like to do, you might never have thought, oh, someone would take my class, my
Mhm.
online course for me to teach them how to get started with painting or photography or whatever it is that,
Mhm.
podcasting, whatever it is that they want to learn to do. And it's interesting because, and I feel the same way. I am willing to pay for things, even though I can probably, if I spend enough time on YouTube, I could probably figure it out that way. But I mean, I don't have all the time in the world to watch 7,000 videos, right?
Oh yeah, that's the thing. I was actually listening to a podcast yesterday. I think it was Smart Passive Income, I think. If you're familiar with that one. And I think he was talking about, or no, the guest was talking about a course. Maybe it's one of his courses that they bought, they felt like was worth the money. And they're like, yeah, I could have, spent hour upon hour, like searching the internet, YouTube, whatever. And I probably could have learned these things that way. But it's like when it's in a course, it saves a lot of time because it's all right there. Like everything you need to know is right there. You don't have to be searching all over the place for the answers.
Right, exactly. And I guess you don't know, but you have a reasonable expectation that the person knows what they're talking about because, they're not some hack that just made a
Right.
video, right? Cool.
There's probably some of those, but
Yeah.
uh,
And yes, I did have a question that was coming to me as you were talking, and now it
oh,
just went away, which I hate when that happens. But anyway,
uh,
that's okay. We'll forge onward until it pops into my head again. So I had to do with podcasting too. In the evening, this happens more than it does in
oh.
the
Yeah, I hate it when that happens. Like when you go into a room because you need to do something, and then you're like, why did I go into this room?
Why am I in this room? Why am I here? It was about something about what you just were saying that I was going to go back and ask you from what we were talking about before. Oh, so
Like
aggravating.
when I was talking about like courses and stuff, or
Well, my God. Okay, that's all right. We'll just go on. Just move on. So I noticed, tell us about on your website, you have like free book downloads and all kinds
Mhm.
of cool stuff. Tell us, what you want people to, how do you want people to reach out to you and find you and, download from you and
Yeah. So all three of my books I give away for free, the digital version. FrugalPreneur, Authorpreneur, and Podcastpreneur. And that's at thesarahstjohn.com/free. That's Sarah with an H and then STJOHN. And then yes, other things on the website that would probably be beneficial is there's a tab at the top that says 27 tools I use, I believe. And it lists, and actually I don't think it's 27 now. I need to anyway, because sometimes I remove some and then replace them anyway. But it's basically all the tools or software that I use that's either free or really affordable to run my business. So I have like the email marketing platforms, Captivate, the podcast host is on there, Descript is on there. I just found and they have a free plan, a funnel builder and like an online course creator thing called it's system. It's systeme.io. Anyway, so I'm just and I keep that list updated. Like if there's something I find that's actually better, then I'll, switch it out. But so that's kind of a good place to go to get started, I guess, as well.
Yeah, cool. I'll definitely check that out. It's time for me to do a revamp. Awesome. So Sarah, what do you wish I would have asked you that I didn't ask? What else do you want to share that I haven't touched on?
I would say, well, if I could give some advice other than the shiny object syndrome, trying to avoid that. The other piece of advice that I like to give is that, well, now I'm thinking about shiny object syndromes. I'm like, wait, that was it, wasn't it? See, now I'm forgetting stuff.
Oh no.
Oh,
No,
I
we
know
all
what
have shiny object
I
syndrome.
know. I know what it was. One thing that I've struggled with, and I think this is probably true for most entrepreneurs, is that we spend so much time learning, which is important, to listen to podcasts, take courses, read books, whatever. But if we spend all our time learning and educating ourselves and never implementing what we're learning, then it's pointless. And so that's the piece of advice I would give is definitely, learn, but implement what you're learning. Maybe like learn a thing, implement it, learn a thing, implement it. So like for every hour I spend learning, I try to spend an hour implementing, but it used to be, just learn. And then because if you're not implementing what you're learning right away, you're going to just forget what you learned.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's true. And then you get into analysis paralysis, like,
Mhm.
oh, which maybe I should just, research these 27,000 different ways of doing a podcast before I actually launch it, right? Just, you know,
Mhm.
just cobble it together as you're driving, like just go and do it and get it out there. That's good advice because it's very easy just to get lost in the
Mhm.
analysis and not stop and say, oh, I haven't actually done anything.
Yeah, and like what you just said reminds me of that expression, like done is better than perfect.
Yes.
Because there's really no such thing as perfect. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. And that perfection is the enemy of progress. That's the other one that
mhm.
sort of is the
Oh yeah,
same
that's
same
good.
idea. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Well, it's been awesome talking to you. Our hour has flown by very quickly. I mean, I guess we still have 10 minutes left, so we could talk some more if you want.
Oh, it's up to you. I mean, totally up to you.
Well, I feel like I know there's more things that, oops, I just hit the microphone. There are more things that you could share and teach us if I just could think of like the right question to ask you.
Uh, mm. Well, I mean, one thing I could say is that when someone's starting an online business, I think sometimes they tend to think that just having a Facebook page or a social media presence is all they need. And it's important to have that. But I definitely recommend having your own website. That's one of the few things that you should invest in regardless. And I use WordPress, which is free. You just have to pay for hosting, which, anywhere from, I mean, you could find it starting at like $3 a month, depending on, you know, um, but but it does have a learning curve. So I mean, you could go with like Wix, Weebly, Squarespace. There's a bunch of different ones, and that's might be $10-20 a month. But definitely have an online presence, a website outside of just social media, so that because MySpace disappeared overnight. There was that thing like a year or something ago with Facebook where they were offline for, I don't know, a couple days or something. And so, and you just never know with social media platforms if they'll just disappear, or
Yeah.
plus you don't own any of the contact information. So let's say you've been building your business all on a Facebook page and then say something happens.
Yeah.
And now you've lost all your fans and all this stuff. But with a website, you can, well, the second thing I'd recommend is starting an email list. And so that you have a way to connect with people and message them. and, have some kind of, like, for example, like I give away my 3 books for free, but you have to enter your email for you to get it. So, I mean, so having a lead magnet of some sort, whether it's an ebook, a cheat sheet, I mean, there's a million different things you can do to create a lead magnet. And you can have it as a pop-up or something on your website so that you can grow your email list. And there's free email marketing platforms. Like I use SendFox, which is, well, when I started it, when I got on it, it was like free to 3,000 subscribers. Now I think they've dropped that to 1,000. But I'm grandfathered in. So, but even once you reach that, I think it's only like a one-time fee of like $50 or something. And then like MailerLite is another good one. It's free up to 1,000 subscribers. And then I think it's only like $15 a month. So anyway, so those are the things I would recommend, like getting started with. No matter what your business is, have a website and start an email list. And to start an email list, I'd recommend, creating a lead magnet of some sort and then having a software program to, because I use Sumo, which is free. I use a lot of free stuff.
You see that word a lot.
Yeah. So so there's always a free way, I think, to do stuff. But the thing is most people don't have the time or desire to like research that. So that's kind of what
I go on your website and find that information.
Exactly. Yeah. My website or like the book FrugalPreneur has different stuff in there. But yeah.
So Sarah, how do you drive people? How do you let people know about your website and your podcast? How are you driving people to those resources?
So one thing would be like this, guesting on other people's podcasts. That's what, what I like about that is it's, generally speaking, it's a free way to do it versus, ads or whatever, but you could run like a Facebook ad or something like that. But yeah, it's mainly through podcast guesting, occasional ads. Let's see. Or trying to, like, you could do a guest blog post on a website, or even create like a blog on Medium or something like that, where people could hear about you there. But yeah, I primarily use podcasting for everything. And so for people to find out about my podcast, I use podcasting to find, yeah. Anyway.
Well, but it's, I mean, obviously people who are listening to a podcast that you're on, they're podcast listeners. So that's your audience. I mean, you don't have to wonder where can I find my audience? You have a business podcast, you go on somebody else's business podcast, and there they are, all your listeners just sitting there waiting for you to hear from you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's why I recommend, whether you have a podcast or not, I recommend guesting on podcasts. And, some people that already have a podcast are like, well, why would I need to guest on podcasts? But, like we talked about, it's,
yeah, like you said, if you're Joe Rogan, you probably don't have to, but if you're not, then potentially you could get another listener. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great talking to you. And I know I have to go back and check out some more of your episodes on your podcast, because I saw a lot of topics there that look like they'd be things I need to know.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad you listened to the show. I didn't know that really beforehand, but that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'll have to check out yours too. I was looking at some of your past episodes, and you had Neil Twa on recently. I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah, I had him on as well. And you had what, Dr. Hank?
Hank Sykes.
Yeah, I had him on.
Yeah. This is Podmatch people. That's why, right?
Right.
We're on the same Podmatch platform. So now we're finding the same people. But one thing that started happening, which is really exciting for me, I mean, I've been tracking how many countries. So that's one thing that's really exciting. That I did last checked, like I think over a month ago, and I was in over 40 countries, which I
Mhm.
love. That is awesome. The
Mhm.
other thing that has been happening is a lot of people have just been sending me emails saying, I listened to your podcast and I want to be on it, or I have somebody that I think should be on it. So, that's fun too. I'm getting
Mhm.
um, some more exposure, and more interesting people are being attracted to the site. So that's fun. I mean,
No,
to the
that's
to the
awesome.
podcast. Yeah. So that's really fun.
Yeah, yeah, because you just never know, like, who could be listening or how it could be impacting. So when you hear messages like that, that's always encouraging.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, you want to, because I mean, it's not just selfishly motivated. I'm not just here because I am primarily started the podcast because I want to talk to interesting people. But if other people are, also interested, then that's even better. That's like a bonus.
Right, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, listener, for listening. I know you have a choice, as we were talking about, of probably about over 2 million podcasts. So I'm excited and psyched that you're here. Um, Psyched to be, like I said, I want to be in more countries. I want to be in like at least 50 countries. So I noticed that Greece was one, and Morocco. So if you know people in those countries and you'd like to share the podcast with them, I would be forever in your debt. And also, we love to hear your comments and suggestions for guests and for future, um, you know, future topics of interest. So please send us along your thoughts and your suggestions. And in the meantime, have a fantastic frugal day.